Hey there, YouTube. Ghost Jake here with you today. How's your day going today? I just watched Siren episode 3, and the title of that is called "Interview with a Mermaid." Okay, now what general thoughts on this episode? I thought this episode was a very good episode, just like the 2-hour season premiere, episodes 1 and 2. Now, I watched this episode twice. I watched it once when it aired at 8, and then I watched it again on Hulu at midnight, so I was able to take notes a lot better. But I still remember some of the stuff, so I didn't really have to take notes all that much. Okay, but let's get started on with the review. In 3, on now. Okay, now after the recap where it says previously on a Siren, where episode 3 picks up. It picks up with Ben looking out his window, and looking out his window, and he's thinking about Ren, and he can hear Ren's song in his mind while he's thinking. A little while, then he goes and then Ben goes and wakes up Maddie, and then we cut to the police investigating. Do you remember in episode 2 or 1? I think it's 2 when Ren killed that guy in that car, giving her a ride. The police are investigating Ren. Well, not Ren at this exact moment, because you know what I mean, because they don't have an ID of Ren, but they're investigating the crime scene. Okay, then a little while later, Xander is laying down in bed or walking around, and then all of a sudden he gets a text on his cell phone. And who is it from? It is from Chris. Chris texts Xander off of a nurse, off of somebody else's phone. And so what happens then is they immediately go. Xander immediately goes to go wake up his friend. And his friend's with the girl, and then Xander pretty much kicks her out and says, look, I got a text from Chris. We got to go do this now. Okay. Now, Ben and Maddie, they decide to go pay a visit to Helen Hawkins's place. Just, because they got to ask Ren a few questions about what's been going on. Right? Now, anyway, while they're something kind of really cool that happens is that Ren is so much stronger than everyone. It is really ridiculous. Maddie grabs her on the shoulder, taps her on the shoulder, and then Ren pretty much throws Maddie across the room, and she hits a cabinet. And then Ben's like, Ren, Ben pretty much tells her, you're a lot stronger than us. You can't attack people, or you're going to draw attention to yourself. Now, one thing, a couple of times, I forgot to put this in my notes, so I'm going to say this before it gets too late. A couple things, we see Ren's sister in the little tank, the military has her in, and then we see Chris also. Now, what's interesting is doing this experiment with Ren's sister's DNA, putting them into like those lab mice, right? And one's fully paralyzed, and then others, have other conditions. And now what a drama. Now this is I found this very interesting. I think the reason why they took Chris, because in the episode I heard that they plan on using Ren's sister's DNA like with human experiments. So I think that's why they took the military. I think that is why they took Chris in episode 1. And so they can use Ren's sister's DNA as an experiment to see what would happen in a human being. Now, I thought that was very interesting. Okay, now Ren is going so Helen has to open the shop, right? And so Helen has to open her shop, and Ren agrees to go with Ben and Maddie to their rescue shelter for an interview. And they learn a whole bunch of interesting things about Ren while she is there in the rescue shelter. One thing they learn is that there are many species, not many species, but there are a lot more of mermaids. There's a lot more species of Ren's species than just Ren and her sister. There's a lot more of them. Let's see. Ren is also very, very intelligent. She ends up solving an intelligence test in like less than a minute. It happened really, really fast. And now I thought this was kind of interesting. Ren's weight, they put her on a scale. Ren's weight, she weighs 196 pounds. It seems like Ben and Maddie were really shocked about that because she weighs more than she weighs more than a girl her size should weigh by the expression of their faces. Now, a little while later, an employee shows up to the shelter. His name is Jerry, and now Jerry is he's feeding the sea lions, and and then Ren walks up on him, and they get to talking a little bit, and then Ren and him end up going to a party at the Siren Song Hotel or Motel. That's where the party is at, and then there's and everyone's like really confused. One, like Maddie and Ben's like, where in the hell did Ren go? We weren't gone that long, because he got a car from Xander. Because while Ben and Maddie were busy with Ren doing the interview and conducting a little bit of experiments, Xander and his friend, they tracked the phone that that Chris texted from to a nurse called Donna Stevens. They find her house, and they're sitting in front of her house, and pretty much sitting in front of her house until she goes to work. And then she eventually leaves to go to work, and then Xander and his friends start to tail Donna Stevens to her work. Now, before we get to the ongoings of the party, another thing I thought that was pretty interesting is the mermaid DNA, right? Now, one thing I thought about the mermaid DNA that was very interesting is when they put it into the fully paralyzed mouse, it cured the mouse. The mouse was able to move. So the mouse was able to move from being fully paralyzed with the mermaid DNA. So God knows what will happen to Chris if Ren's sister's DNA goes into him. But that is very intriguing to me. Now at the party, Ren is there with Jerry while Ben and Maddie are looking for her. And Ben and Maddie are looking for Ren because they don't know where she went. And, Ren tries some beer for the first time. And, and tries some beer for the first time. And then eventually Ben and Maddie find out they're at the party because Jerry texts them. One thing I thought that was very interesting, I just remembered I missed while Ren was at the animals, the rescue shelter. What I thought was interesting was Ben asked Ren why she attacked him underneath the water, and then Ren said it's because she kills. It's not like she's evil or anything, she's just a predator. And she just explains like it's to be killed or be killed pretty much. That is pretty much, logical. I think. Okay. Oh, crap, I forgot one more thing since I'm already at the party that happened before the party. The police took the lady in who Ren stole the clothes from, and the lady gave the police a description of Ren, so they are on to Ren now. They have Ren's identity. Now at the party, Ben and Maddie finally arrive, and Ben's brother Doug is there. So he wants to talk to Doug. Doug wants to talk to Ben about Ben joining the family business joining the family business as a consultant. And you can tell that Ben doesn't really want to, do it at all. But we'll see what ends up happening with that down the road. And one thing that was very interesting at the party is after Ben and Maddie see Ren, Maddie goes to go get Ren, and Ren is knocked into the pool. Now everyone is very concerned whether or not if Ren is going to turn into the mermaid because she fell in the water. And another thing that is very interesting, it's at the animal shelter thing, but I still find this I find it fascinating. I just forgot to mention it. Is that Ren can only stay on land for about a day. Okay, now Ren is in the pool and she swims to the surface. Right after she fell in, she swims to the surface. Maddie grabs her hand because the cops show up, and Maddie leads Ren to a room in the motel. And then Maddie, questions Ren. It's like, how come you didn't change into, your true form when you fell into the pool? And then Ren pretty much says, that is because it's not her water, meaning it's not seawater or ocean water, right? So she could probably swim in a river and she would be fine, is my guess. But the one thing, this is a little off topic. Do you think Ren would turn into her true form in brackish water? That is kind of interesting. I think she might. Anyway, after Ren, explains that she can, it's her true form, what happens is, okay, Ben comes into the room. Now at the military lab, right? At the military lab, Ben is discovered by the military. What do I mean by that? Well, do you remember in episode 2, The Lure, where Ben takes, when he's on the boat with Xander and Xander's dad, and he dives underneath the water to save Ren, and he finds that call. They got Ben's ID off of that device. So now in future episodes of the season, Ben's probably going to be wanted by the same military. I don't know that for sure. I haven't looked at any spoilers or anything. That's just me guessing. And it's a pretty good guess. Now, let's see. Only 2 more left. Okay. Now, one thing I forgot to add. One thing. My handwriting is really stucky right now. It's kind of making me it's kind of hard for me to read my own handwriting. That's pretty bad. When Xander and his friend found Donna at her work, the military came out, and so they hightailed out. Then Donna called them, and then they pretty much hung up. Okay, now I already covered that Ben's been discovered. Okay, now we're getting close to the end. Okay, so what happens is they all go. Ben, Maddie, and Ren all go back to probably Ben's house because it's too late to go back to Helen's, and Helen's going to be already asleep. So Ben, sets out her place for Maddie on. Ben and Maddie make a little bed on the couch for Ren, and then Ren all of a sudden gets up and lays down in between Ben and Maddie. Now, what I take from that is I take a couple things. 1, she feels comfortable around them, and 2, she trusts them. She trusts them. She feels like they will not betray her at all. Now, to close off the episode, Ren's sis wakes up. She wakes up from her She wakes up because in most of this episode, I don't know if she was just playing, possum, pretending to be injured. But she was pretty much not in the best shape for pretty much this episode. So, and she wakes up at the end. So next week is going to be very interesting, a very interesting episode. And my general thoughts of this episode, I thought this was a very, very good episode. Even though there wasn't a lot of action, it was kind of a lot of plot building. And plot building and investigating. This was still a very good episode of Siren, episode 3. Can't wait till next week for episode 4. This is Ghost Jake signing out. See you later.